Hello everybody, my name is Gordon Bragg. I'm delighted to be doing this short video for the Edinburgh Concerto Festival. It's been a wonderful experience for me over the last 3 years conducting the final of the concerto competition. I've had some really lovely performances, I think. I thought I would just spend a little bit of time in this video just introducing myself and perhaps just talking a bit about my journey into music and also how my journey has sort of played out over the last 20 years. I think it's, in a way, that, not terribly interesting for me to talk about myself, but actually thinking about it for a few minutes, I think that perhaps my musical journey is atypical in some ways. I certainly haven't specialised in one area, and I perhaps just want to tell you about how this came about. I'm a violinist primarily, but also, of course, you know me as a conductor and perhaps also as a pianist. So it's interesting how these three strands have sort of informed the other over my musical life. So I come from quite a musical family. My parents are amateur musicians. And my elder brother works at St Andrews University in the music department there. They're all sort of quite church music-y, I would say. They're very much into church music and playing the organ. My father and certainly my brother are. And I wasn't really bitten by that particular bug. I've never been fully a paid-up member of that particular club. I always found somehow the organ not to be an instrument whereby the personality of the player was sort of a part of the actual performance, and that always from a very early age sort of troubled me, because from the very first time I played the violin, age 5, I loved the fact that it was somehow a way of my humanity or something within me to come out and speak. Which maybe sounds incredibly egocentric, but there you go. But certainly, yes, I started at the age of 5. I also used to sort of write my own little pieces of music. I wrote, actually, wait a second here, I even got this out to show you. At the age of 6, I wrote this, this is quite embarrassing, but this was a violin concerto I wrote. I ruled out all the lines and did the bars, and there was a lot of sort of triads and stuff going on. So there was something going on at a very early age, which meant that I really sort of wanted to be in this world. At the age of 8, I went to the now Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, where I studied violin, piano, did a bit of composition. And another really important moment for me, I think, was at the age of 13, where I first played in the National Youth Orchestra of Scotland. And I think that was a really important moment, because it was the first time I had really played in an orchestra where I felt, in a really wonderful way, that it wasn't just about me. I was a very small cog in this large sort of machine, and it was a very delicate ecosystem of all these wonderful musicians sort of putting their spirit into playing. It was the first symphony of Elgar. A lot of our education, of course, is centered on the self, and you're there playing individually. The concerto, of course, is the ultimate example of that, and actually that was the first time I really felt as if I was part of something much bigger than myself. So that was a very important moment. And then I went to the Guildhall and studied violin for undergrad. And at the end of that, I sort of had enough of the violin for a bit. And I put it in its box. And I went to study conducting in Manchester. And that was very much just sticking you in front of an orchestra and saying, conduct it, which was very scary. Especially there was so much complex music and things. But it was a very valuable learning curve. And then I went to Switzerland and did a much more rigorous Hochschule education, very much sort of, very rigorous and sort of almost scientific. So I learned a lot from that. Then I sort of got homesick. I really wanted to come home. Was quite unhappy in Switzerland, and I had stayed in contact with somebody at the RCS who said that they had one space left, so this was sort of September, so this was about 2 weeks before, I think, the start of term, 10 years ago now, when they said they had a space for a repetiteur in the opera school. And I had kept on playing piano to quite a high standard, and so I came back and did a year of playing piano in the opera school and conducting. And then sometime in that year, I got the job as a conductor fellow at the RCS, and then an assistant to Donald Runnicles at the BBC. So at that point, I wasn't playing the violin at all. And then at a certain point, I got back into playing, and I joined the Edinburgh Quartet, which was a really great few years. And then I joined the Scottish Chamber Orchestra, where I'm delighted to say that I'm still there now, surrounded by such inspiring musicians. So it's so nourishing to be surrounded by people like Philip Hyam. He's normally in my right ear, and my deskie Marcus Bartram-Stevens in my left. So it's three different ways of approaching the same mountain, I think. The violin playing, sometimes as violinists we can just become obsessed with a sort of melodic line without seeing the roots underneath, and so that's where the piano playing really comes in, the knowledge of harmony and sort of seeing really what's underneath the car bonnet. And then the conducting is almost like a sort of amalgamation of the two. It's a very holistic thing whereby you have to somehow bring this score to life. So throughout my whole artistic life, these three different strands all sort of point to in the same direction, and continues to do so today. in response to the question what it's like preparing the soloists for the festival, it's always just such a joy, I think, to work with young soloists, young musicians. The first thing I always do is try and establish a human connection to the person. So try and find a sort of common ground for us to work on a human level. I think it's very important for young soloists. It might be their first ever time playing with an orchestra, that I can sort of somehow come to where they are and really sort of try and work together. So I'm not interested in imposing anything unless somehow something's not working. So I really enjoy that as well, that meeting, you know, each person has their own sort of soul and personality, and I love the sort of different personalities that one meets by doing this. I suppose in response to the question, how would one prepare for such a performance? I can offer you this one insight, which is that if you do get the chance to play in the final, or even if actually you're just entering for the preliminary stage, please learn the score. And the score is not your part. The score is the whole piece. And I always like to liken this to an actor only learning their lines in a script, in a play. It would make absolutely no sense if you didn't know what your line in a play was in relation to with somebody else's. Sometimes the role of a concerto soloist is quite one-dimensional, it can be monochrome. You know, the soloist is the hero, the orchestra is accompanying, and that's about it. But very rarely is that just it. And perhaps it's my background as playing a lot of second violin parts. I love playing second violin parts because you're really in the texture. Your role changes all the time. It's really important to know what your role is. If you're accompanying, if you're the melodic line, whether you're just like adding sort of harmony or texture, what is it that you're adding to the overall? And if you can answer that question, then you're already a long way towards, I think, a successful performance. My experience of playing in the final was, I suppose, quite harrowing because I didn't do that. I mean, I was very young. I was sort of, I don't know. I decided to play a piece, the chanson poème, I remember this, that was probably too difficult for me at the time. And I didn't know the score at all. And I seem to remember getting into quite a lot of problems with the conductor because of it. So there's my little piece of advice from being on both sides of the fence. Incidentally, when I participated, I certainly didn't win. The person who did win was now my wonderful colleague Philip Hyam, the cellist. So that's perhaps another thing to say, in that these people that you meet either in this class at the competition festival or in any other class, these people that you meet now, somehow, if you stay in music or even if you don't, these people have a habit of staying in your life for 20, 30, 40, 50 years afterwards. So cherish your colleagues, really sort of learn what you can from your colleagues. And I think that's a wonderful thing about also what we do. I did a project last year whereby I was sitting next to the person that I had sat next to in junior orchestra when I was 12, I think, or something like that. So yes, really cherish your colleagues. Regarding nerves, that's quite a hard one for me to talk about because I've suffered terrible nerves over my years performing, and it's something that I constantly come back to. I remember very much a moment in time when I was 11 years old when I suddenly realized what nerves were, and that for other reasons was quite a difficult time in my life anyway. But I remember suddenly being on stage and thinking, oh my God, I can't. What's the piece? What do I do? So I've been there. All I can say is that I remember being in a conducting class with Bernard Haitink, the conductor, and somebody asked him about nerves and said, oh, isn't it terrible when you're standing in front of an orchestra and you can't think of the tempo, and you can't get settled in a minute, so on and so on. And I remember Bernard Haitink said, yeah, it's really tough. There was no answer. There was no answer. And I think perhaps there's something to be learned there, that it's just doing. It's just by doing. I think looking for magic bullets in something like that is maybe not the right path to take. You have to immerse yourself in the music. And all I can tell you as well is that to play a concert without any nerves is much worse. When you feel as if you don't have that sort of slight current of energy going through you, I can assure you that the feeling of being sort of dead inside is so much worse. So it's a way of sort of trying to flip that energy into something positive and a heightened sense of heightened emotion and a heightened awareness. I think that's possibly the answer to that. Especially in the competition festival, we're really all friends. We all want you to do a fantastic performance. So it's a very good energy for you to come into and to perform. In terms of competitions, you know, a competition is just a dot on a landscape. You know, it's just one point in time. The winner or whoever could be completely different the next day. It's just one sort of small pinprick in time. I think the most important things about doing music are remaining curious, asking yourself why a lot. Music only exists also in sound. It's not a question of just saying, well, that's a forte, I will play loud. It's asking, what is the composer's relationship to that marking? Or what is it expressing here? Or how does it add up into a larger moment of time? You can ask yourself so many different questions, and the eternal nature of what we do, of music, is why I love it, and it's such a nourishing thing to be in. So competitions are just one moment in time of this journey of sort of walking on this sort of path through this incredible art form and learning so much about it as we go. So that is what I would like to leave you with. And I really hope that you're staying safe. And I also really hope to see as many of you next year. Take care.